So my mic has been off all that time, and I didn't know. So anyways, I wasted all that dialogue. So anyways, what I was talking about is that when we learn these fundamentals, what you have, when your hand is here, you're learning to move from a position to a position. So the common idea is when we're going through our movements in the form is to know that when we're here and we punch, this is your next movement. This is your next movement. So what we're developing as a training is the consciousness of movement because we're memorizing sequence, and that's what we're doing when we're doing forms, until you start to recognize the format and the category of those movements. So diagonal strike up and down is developed in that action. And eventually, these actions are in your body, so you know. So my hand is like this, it knows to do this. You know this, it knows this. So that's format. You're formatting your body, which is a motor skill, into a category of motion. And when we do this, we start to learn, just like I just went over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know that we have an action that goes from here to there, from here to there. So then when you apply your technique and you use the different hand positions, it's formatted and it responds in a specific way. That's pretty amazing as a strategy back in the day when they designed these forms. Now, if you don't understand that concept and you don't understand, all you're learning is a bunch of movements that are really not connected. So the Hung Gar movements, the forms are connected because they're leading you into the next phase of movement. Some styles actually that we created after some of the traditional styles have taken away some of those concept principles. So you're limiting the amount of actions that you have, and you're also taking away some of the, or shortcutting some of the training methods. So anything that you've deleted or dropped out is gone, right? It's like you're in your computer, you fill it with all this information, and then you did the erase thing and it's all gone. So all the stuff that you spent time formatting or building disappears. So then how do you remember what you did? You'd have to either redo it or restructure it, or then kind of pick and choose the different things that you've left out. Because a lot of times when you're formatting something, it takes a lot of thought, but it's not ingrained in your mind, right? Because you've passed through it. When we're doing movements and you're not really familiar with the form in the beginning, you don't recall it because it hasn't been stored, it hasn't been memorized. So that's really, what happens when we're learning sequence and form is that we've gone through this in Fook, right? In Gung Kuen, we've gone through this. So we learn a format. And we program this in, and then we're in a position like this or like this. So that's the basic salute. That's done generically. That's how we all do it. But it's understanding, what this and this represent, and why do we sink, and why do we twist. It becomes integration of body because you really can't apply a technique going like this. You'd have to do this in order for you to have that. And then you wouldn't do this and then stop. You'd do this and then tie it together. So the body will eventually respond to the breakdown of what we're doing here. When we lift and punch, what we have to do from here is take a step, drop the elbow, and punch. So what method would you use after that? So would you go like this? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you start to build some synchronization of the feet and the hands. So then the movements become more seamless because ultimately your goal when you strike is like that. Right? So that's how you would move. And that's where the effectiveness of the technique comes in because you're You don't have the stop gaps, and what happens is it becomes much more efficient, more direct. But the thing is, if you're going to do this, you have to have accuracy. Where's the accuracy of movement? If I'm here and I go like this, the accuracy is here. Now, because I go to the corner, and I go to the corner, you can see when I go to the center, it's the same movement. It has the same relative position. So when I'm here, you have this here and here. So the center line is very, very important to maintain. That's something that you get you to understand, that you have a line here. It's not here. It's here. So that's a very important fundamental in a foundation movement. When we cut, there's two different cutting motions. This one cuts down, like when we're doing in the eighth form, when we punch and we cut. This is palm down. When we're like this, say in Gung Kun, and we pull back, after we, let's see, where are we? We're here after this, right? We pull back, double back fist. We have a cross hand position and a cut, right? So between this cut and this cut, what is the difference? Why would you do it this way and why would you do it this way? Well, the difference is the application and the direction of movement. If my hand is here, like a trapping hand, or say just arm pounding type of thing, or you're moving in this direction or this direction, when my hand is here and I drop the elbow, this is going over the top and then palm striking, right? When I go like this, it's coming from underneath. You see that? So cutting like this and going like this are two directions of movement. See that? So if I'm here and it comes in, I separate like this or separate like this. So this is in the crane. This is like a crane, but this is the cutting movement. This is the flip over. So if I cut like this and I turn, then my movement goes like this. And then this part of the wrist takes it down. This takes it down, and I palm out. This is separating like this, and then I come in like this. So both of them can follow up with the palm. One of them becomes grabbing or diverting. So the versions of cutting are just extensions of the movement. What do you follow up with that movement? Once you cut, thrust, cut, palm. So those are actions. So the response is, when I cut, where's the opening that you're going to strike with? If I open like this and I thrust up, you open like this and strike like this, that's your lippet. So most of those will take you from one position to the next based on what the previous motion is, the action. So when you practice your fundamentals or your movements, you have to have the striking direction of the movement that are correct. So when you strike with two hands like this, you want them to be about shoulder width, all right? Not wider than the shoulders, because look, what are you going to hit out there? It's here. So that's two palms. If I'm using one palm, it should be directed to the center. But actually, you don't actually strike with this palm in this position. This palm generally would support this hand like this. Okay, so this hand position, you see butterfly palms really is a pretty fancy movement, but actually it's broken down into basically two things. You have your scoop, cut, and here's your middle block, right? 1, 2. So this is more this cutting hand. This is this. So between this and this is the change in the hands. But when I cut, this would follow. You notice off the back leg. Cut, it's off the back legs. So you can see that relationship there. Now this is different off the front leg. Okay, so this one is here. But then when you push, this palm, okay, is to the chest, not like this, you see. So you can see, when I do these movements, you can see the framework of the movement is really what defines the action. So a lot of Southern styles where the hands are moving, regardless of what style it is, you can see the basic imagery of the position. Because in functionality, when the hand comes in and you block, regardless of how you do it, still requires this bridge work. So the bridge work of the movement really comes into play as an understanding. So when we speak of body intelligence, learning, sequence, and form, really is supported by the principles and the foundation movements that we're being taught. So principles of elbow position, the strategy of should the hands be parallel or one toward the center, really defines the principle of where does the forces of the movement go based on the characteristics of the movements. You see, the interaction of one side with the other is really what makes the difference in application. When we cut and we palm, short or long, trap, cut, palm, form the fist, and punch. Punch, short punch, short punch. So that's what we call the short punch. Where does this happen? Palm, here, here. That's a short punch. Fook fu, corner back fist, sliding step, punch. 1, 2, 3, short punch. Long punch. So when you do a short punch, it's horizontal. It just extends up. But look, it doesn't stop here. When you extend it, you can't really extend it in a horizontal position. Doesn't have any power. When you turn the palm, because the elbow is here, has much more power. When you go like this and you extend, then the power is really at this level on the extended punch. It's not here, unless you're punching down here. But really, when you punch here, this one is much more natural and effective. So those are some of the reasons why when we go like this, even striking with this, it doesn't stop here. It has to cross the body. See, so that's what a diagonal strike is. So these are just sort of reinforcing when you're doing your form where these hand techniques go. Because when you first go through the sequence and you mimic the movement, you don't really understand the reason why this hand is over there, why this hand is over there, why this palm is like this, why this thumb is tucked in, why this finger is extended, and why this is curled, why this elbow is down, and why this hand is out. Those are all principles that have to be understood as part of body mechanics and strategies of what creates a strong technique and a compromised technique. What creates the better transition between here and here and here and here and here. Those are all interim positions that you have to begin to build into our training timing. So your training is really to build that. Build the transition and the timing between the legs and the hand and the torso as a relationship. So that comes back to what? The 5 coordinations. The hands, the eyes, the body, the waist, and the stance. Right? The hands and the eyes, hand, eye, body coordinate. The body, this is the body, the form, the body position. The body position. the body position, the body position, the body position. See, these are all parts of body positioning. Body positioning, body positioning, body positioning, body positioning. These are all the body posture form that when you're here, or you're here, or you're here, or you're here, where are those positions that we're trying to define? When you're here, right? When you're here and you're here. How do these movements work? Here. Here. Yeah. Yeah, what is it?
Does Hung Gar have like chin techniques,
Uh-huh.
grappling?
Yeah. So, China and grappling is a term used. Some styles really emphasize it. Some, you know. But what is China? What is grappling? China is joint lock and integration of movement. So I just give you some samples through the visuals of what it is. When you go like this, and your hands do this, these are practicing the gripping, right? So if you go like this, and I go like this, that's grabbing, right? When you take your hand and go like this, you can imagine if someone grabbed my hand and I turn like this, and I turn into a cutting hand, right? I can pull down like this. So that becomes a joint lock, right? Or a joint break. When I go like this, and I go like this, that becomes pulling at the wrist and pressing on the elbow. That's kind of a chi-na movement. When I go like this, like in the 5-element form, when my hand comes like this and I hook like this and I practice this, if you grab my hand, this hand goes to there, it goes like there. Those are actually chi-na movements, because anytime the hands come together or you press and you trap, those actually are type of arm bars. When I go like this, those are movements that translate into arm barring and pressing and so forth. So there is those type of things. In fact, you know, the Seong, the great grandmaster Lamjo, the training in Hung Gar with the fingers is not to claw you specifically, it's for grabbing. When I go like this and I go like this is grabbing. So what is she? Grabbing is holding, and the fingertips to strengthen the hands are focused to grab joints, pull down, moving up and down when your hands go like this. Those are really ideas of joint lock and breaks. When you go like this, those are joint locks type of thing, where when the hand moves like this, you see this is the hand, this is the elbow. This goes to the elbow or the forearm. If I go like this, the same thing happens. So, you know, there's different types of motions that we develop. Some movements are fluid. It's not always striking. So striking movements, body position really tie into how effective you are. If I go like this, I punch like this and I go like this. This actually is thinking your opponent, you block and you go behind the head. When you go like this, that's actually a sweep and a head. You pull the head this way. Okay. When you go like this, that's a takedown, right? So if you're going to grab someone and you're going to pull like this and then pull down like this, you see the body form. This is a sweep or elbow. So you trip and the upper body has to work in sync. So how do you develop those movements? If you talk about grappling or sweeping, they're actually how you move your body. You know, do we have knee strikes? Or do you have knee strikes? Or do you have kicking? All of these things are all part of body form. If I go like this, that's a block. If I go like this, that's a kick. If I go like this, that's a sweep. If I move like this and I come in, that's a sweep. So when I go like this, the hands, one, that's really changing the movement to what would be striking, to pulling and locking. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. When you go like this, and you go like this, goes to the neck, go like this, goes to the throat, pulling down. So these are, techniques. You look at an elbow. Is it a strike, or is it coming across and turning? And then, so when I go like this, you think that's a strike or a joint lock. When I'm like this, that's actually a movement that's reversing of the dragon. Right? So you see, the softness in Hung Gar is really where that side of it comes from. And then the physical side of it, the original movement, the physical side of that, all of those evolve into a softer stage of your application of technique. So on one hand, you can't, striking and, locking and pressure pointing and pressing on the joints and so forth are a different strategy in how you use your movement. That's all it is. So when we practice this, these type of things, we see camouflage within the movement, certain techniques, but then when you're like this and you're like this, what is that? Why would we strike like this? Why would we strike like this? Why would we do these type of things? There's a purpose to build the body, the footwork, the stance, the uppercut, the hook, the back fist, the palm. These are all striking movements that actually can be influenced by 1, 2. This movement becomes more of a soft approach to the things that you're talking about, or that question. Is there any more, Lucien? Yeah. So that's really an explanation there. But when we're here and we trap and we cut, that actually is tying into another movement. Like if someone grabs your wrist like this and I go like this, cutting hand is actually an anti-grab movement. When someone grabs your wrist and you do this or you do this, these are anti-grab movements. But then you can think, you hold here and I go like this, that breaks a hold. If I go like this, that breaks a hold. If I go like this, that becomes a movement. So you can see, the requires flexibility and nimbleness in your body. So this is something that is overlooked in something like Hung Gar, because we see all these things that are happening, in the strength side of Hung Gar and what you see in the movies. But it encompasses a lot of different strategies. So that's just one category of thing. Joint locking, joint breaking, sweeping, grappling. They're all phases, because if you think about it, it doesn't matter what martial art, it has some aspect of what it takes to be actually well-rounded in your technique. So it's just a method of madness to what your goal is and what you practice. But regardless of what martial art you study and how you interpret the movement, application is something that's practiced and then applied, and then proficiency comes from more practice. That's about it. And then understanding the body mechanics so that it's not, you're using the right type of strength. Because if you're using the wrong type of strength with a technique, then it's not going to be as effective. Because if you're too hard when you're trying to do a soft wrist lock, or maybe a break in the movement, then if you're too hard and rigid, it doesn't happen. Why? Because your body doesn't work with it. When you go like this, it has to be close to the body. When you go like this, it has to be close to the body. If you're like this and like this, it doesn't work. So that's what we get out of understanding body form and mechanics. So if you like this, give us a thumbs up. Go to YouTube, subscribe. Keep coming in with the questions. That gives me something to work off as an idea. That way I know where you're coming from. And the other thing is we're going to continue to stream. We're not actually I guess, legally open. I don't know if there's even legal, that at the end of June is when I think we, in Massachusetts anyways, is going to be part of that third phase of reopening. So the streaming is going to continue. On that note, I'll see you Thursday, and keep tuned in.